Head over to BoardGamePrices.com to find the best price on the Funkoverse strategy games and thousands of other games. Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today, we're going to be jumping into the Funkoverse. It's going to be all sorts of different intellectual properties like DC with Batman and the Joker, or Harry Potter, or Rick and Morty, or the Golden Girls. Today we're taking a look at Funkoverse, the strategy game. This takes those sort of Funko Pops, has smaller miniatures, and it's a strategy game where you're trying to get more points than your opponents in different scenario-based games. So let me show you how this works. I'll see you on the other side. Now this is the 4-character DC version of the Funkoverse strategy game, where it comes with Batgirl and Batman, Harley Quinn, and the Joker, each with different cards and different abilities and things that they can do. And the game comes with a board, and each side of the board has 2 different scenarios. So we have this one that has 2 scenarios, and we have this one that has 2 scenarios, the Joker's Funhouse. And so you'll be able to decide which scenario to play on depending on which board you're playing on. Now when setting up your side, let's say we're playing with the Joker and Harley Quinn, each player's going to get some of these little action tokens depending on what they start with, and these are going to allow them to spend those throughout the game to do different special abilities, which is cool. You also get an item. There's 2 items in each sort of box of 4 characters. This one's the mallet, which gives you a certain special ability, and everyone will start with a 3rd character, sort of a basic character, which has also a player aid of what the basic moves are. Now, you can mix and match other Funkoverse games and give yourself even more characters. So instead of having a basic one, you can have another full character from one of the other sets. Now the board gets set up depending on that scenario, and as you can see here, we have the mallet we talked about with Harley Quinn, and here's that other henchman there. And on this side, we have the Batgirl, Batman holding a batarang weapon, and we have the police officer, which is their basic character to help them out. Now in this scenario, it's called control, and you'll want to control points either in this corner of 4 spaces, the middle, or this corner over here. And if you're able to, you're going to be getting points. We'll show you more about that later. You can also get points by knocking characters out and interacting with certain other tokens on the board. Now the game is 2 to 4 players. If you're playing with more than 1 player per side, each of the players will play 1 character, and then they both control the 3rd character. If you're obviously by yourself, you control all of them, and when it's your team's turn, you can decide what order or which character you're going to take to take actions that turn, and then that player controlling that will take those actions. There's different things that you can do. They're all listed on the player aid here. Now one of the things you can do is move, and you can move up to 2 squares, and you can move in any direction, diagonal or not. However, you'll see some of these lines here. You can't move sort of through this because this sort of thing stops you from moving that way. But here we're here. Anytime you're on one of these or adjacent to one, you can take an interact action. So one of my actions was to move up to 2, and my second one would be to interact with this. This essentially is going to give us a point. And by the way, points in this game are these cool little shards here. They're really nice. Again, in this game, we're trying to get 10 of them. But this then comes off the board, and it will go on our team's cooldown track. Now this is a very interesting part, and probably my favorite part of this whole game. It goes to the 4, and what happens is once all the players have taken their actions on both sides, it's the end of the round, everything will just move down 1. So that means that this thing is not going to be coming out until after this turn. It comes back on the board. So it's another 4 turns before that token is going to be on the board. Someone can go get a point, but you're looking at what's on the cooldown tracks for these and looking and planning a couple turns ahead. Oh, that's going to come out this turn. I can start moving there now, things like that. Another thing you can do on your turn is challenge. If you're adjacent to someone, again, diagonals adjacent, you can challenge them. Now, some spots you have to be able to see them. So from here to here, we actually can't see this player because from center of this square to center, it kind of gets hit by this wall, meaning you can't see them and you couldn't challenge them. So you can sort of defend yourself by being in different spots throughout the board. But let's say they were here. Now to challenge, this player would roll 2 dice. Now, this is 3 successes regardless if you're attacking or defending. This is 1 success if you're attacking. So that would have been 4. If you roll a shield when you're attacking, normally it does nothing. But if you remember, Harley Quinn has the mallet, and each shield is a hit. So this would be 2 hits. So then the other player is going to roll and defend depending on how many dice they have here. This is 2 for shield. So this player will be able to roll 2. Now, if they rolled 2 shields, this would equal this, and this player would lose the challenge and nothing would happen. They would just lose their action. But if this player did not have at least 2, and again, this player is using that mallet, then this player would be knocked down. Now, being knocked down is interesting because now this player, either for their turn, if they haven't gone yet this round, on their turn, they have to spend both actions to stand up. But another action you can take is if you have a if it was Batman's turn and they're adjacent to them, they could spend an action to assist and lift this player up. Now this is important too, because if this player is knocked down, let's say that was Harley Quinn's first action, and they challenge this one again, if they beat him, this actually gets knocked out and this team would get a point. And this player would be off the board until the next turn where they start back in their starting spot. So knocking players out is one way to get points. Now another thing you can do in this scenario is if you're in one of those 4 spots there in the corner where you can try to get a control point, let's say it was Batman's turn, they can interact for an action, take one of these point trackers, they are the sort of white backgrounds, and they can place it in any 4 spots here, they place it here. At the end of the round, each one of these that's on their side, they're gonna get a point. And if they have the majority of them flipped to their side, they'll get an additional point. That's specific for this scenario. And that happens at the end of each round. So you're running around, trying to flip control markers, trying to knock people out, trying to interact with these point scoring things when they're out there and timing when they're there. Now once a player finishes an action, they'll be exhausted, and this just helps you keep track of who's taking actions. Once both teams have all their players exhausted, that's when you sort of clean up and you get ready, and then next team will be the starting player. Now let's talk about some of these abilities, like the Joy Buzzer. You can spend one of these red tokens to challenge, which allows you to roll 3 dice instead of 2, but the target must be standing. Now when you spend these, it tells you where to put it. Like this one, we would put that red on the 1 of the cooldown track. If we did one of these more powerful abilities, we would take a gray token and put it like on the 3 or the 2. So in this case, if the Joker did that, they'd place it here. They'd get it back at the end of the next round, but you know, let's say they had already spent, or somebody else had already spent something up here, and you know, they're coming down each round. If they're already spent, you can't use them. So it's sort of a resource management and a timing between the 2 players, because usually there's some synergies between the types of tokens that they can use. Now let's look at some of the other actions here, like Mystery Box. You can spend 2 of those gray tokens, and you can move 2, then you place one of these Mystery Box tokens in an empty square where they can see within 2 squares, and then if any other opponent runs into this, they get to roll 4 dice and then remove it. So it's a mystery box that hits them. But if there's enough tokens, if he has a token left, he can put it on the 3 and remove one of these from the map, essentially activating it and challenging with 3 dice. So they can, the Joker can plant these mystery boxes throughout the board, and then later on set him off with a remote control. But these abilities actually help too. You can move an adjacent rival 1 square and Harley up to 2 squares. So you can move an opponent into one of those mystery boxes. Or, you know, this one here, you can do a basic challenge to each rival. So if there's more than 1 rival there, she can hit a bunch of them with a whirlwind. Or here, you can choose a standing rival. You roll 3 dice and you can pull the target 1 square closer. That's another way to move them possibly into those boxes, so their abilities sort of work well together. Also, if Harley Quinn stands up, she may do a basic challenge. So that's kind of cool. As soon as she stands, boom, she gets to hit. And the Joker has an ability here. When the Joker's knocked out, you do place one of those mystery box tokens there. So that's sort of how those guys work. And on the other side, Batman's cool. When he's adjacent to 2 or more rivals, his defense is increased by 1. Plus, he can spend 1 token to, you know, basically stand right up when knocked down. So if he's knocked down, you just spend 1 to get up, and then he can, you know, instead of spending 2 actions, you spend 1 token. The POW is just a challenge that allows you to roll 3 dice. The grappling swing's cool. It allows you to, you know, choose a rival within 3 squares and then place Batman adjacent to them. So it's, you know, using that grappling swing to get there and then challenging them. Batgirl has some cool stuff, has some intel. You can give these to another player, and essentially it allows you them to decrease the amount of cost it is to spend these to do these abilities, and that's kind of cool. But once that character's exhausted, it goes away. So essentially, it's like you can give this to them, and in that round they can have a decreased cost to use some of those abilities. Here, obviously, you know, flip kick here, you can challenge 2 and then move. So that's kind of cool. You can challenge then move. Plus, Batgirl, if she's standing, always moves 1 square at the start of her turn, so she can move really fast and then sometimes hit and then move. So she's really fast like that. And the flying tackle, you move up to 3 squares, and then if you're adjacent to them, you challenge them. So it allows you to move and tackle. And then the gather intel is move 1 and give up to 2 allies this status card. That's how you sort of give them those. Now, there's also 2 packs. Here's one for the Golden Girls, and there's also one for DC, which has Robin and Catgirl in it. Now, these come separately. You can play this with just 2 players, or you can mix this with some of the other ones. I recommend playing this, mixing any of the 2 packs with something else, because it's always best to have like 3 major characters on each side. But each of these come with their own abilities, a board, the double-sided board, 4 different scenarios. So you can actually mix the Golden Girls with DC and play in the DC world. Or you can bring the DC world to the beach of the Golden Girls or their condo and have them play there. And you can mix and match all the different, you know, IPs that the Funkoverse strategy game has to offer. All right, well, there's the Funkoverse strategy game. I saw this at Gen Con. I gotta admit, I didn't know about it before I got there, and one of my friends told me to check it out, and I did, and I was like, wow, this is gonna be really big. And so I checked it out. I was like, ooh, this is really cool looking. So let me tell you about the things I liked about it. The game has great presentations, the characters, the items, things like that. It just looks cool on the board. The characters look nice and cool. Now, be known that the miniatures themselves, they're big. I mean, I think they're big. But if you are a Funko Pop sort of collector, they're definitely smaller than that, obviously, because they need to be able to move on the board, things like that. So no, they're not the big size Funkos, but they are still large in board gaming, standards. Obviously, it's using the very popular intellectual properties, the ones I mentioned in the intro: Harry Potter, DC Comics, Rick and Morty, things like that. And I'm sure they're going to be adding more and more as this thing goes on. This has an approachable rule set, really sort of aimed, I guess, in definitely mass market stores. These are going to be certain stores are actually going to have certain exclusives where they're only going to be able to sell certain intellectual property versions of this. But from what I'm told, the hobby market, the hobby board game market, will actually be able to sell all of them. So if you go there, you can get any of them there. But again, simple rule set, but it's got a decent amount going on. The game does have tough decisions, even with that different simple rule set. There's a lot to do with timing and turn order. Looking at who do you have left, who do they have left, what's the state of the board, what's the state of the tokens, what's the state of the cooldown track. I mean, it's simple, but there's definitely a lot to think about. And when you time things right, ooh, this player hasn't gone yet, let me go try to knock them down so that they won't be able to do anything. That will free up this person to come in and do this. So there's definitely a decent amount going on here. This is not, if I just saw this in a store and I saw the figures there in a mass market store, honestly, I probably would have been like, I bet you it's not very good. But I was impressed with how simple it is, but yet how much depth there is to the game. The thematic and cool abilities. The Batman's relentless, where he gets to stand up really easy. The Joker's mystery box is blowing things up. I mean, really cool that they thought all those things through. The item selection's fun, and you saw the batarang and the mallet, and you can give it to either player on the team. That's kind of cool. Makes you want to get other boxes as well and mix and match items and things. The multiple boards and sides and the multiple scenarios is cool. So you get that game. You got 2 sides of the boards, 2 scenarios. That's basically 4 different games, And then you start adding other characters in from other Funko games, and it's going to be, the replayability is going to be off the charts here. The 4 character sets, I would recommend. They have 4 character and 2 character sets. That's good because you can start with a lesser price, but I would highly recommend you using the 4 character sets because the 2 character sets I would say are more for sort of expanding and adding more characters. The game's definitely best with 3 main characters. I'm going to say, a 4 character set and a 2 character set. Of course, you could buy a cheaper one just to see if you like the system and stuff, and you'd have a 2 character set, and then if you buy a 4 character set of any type, you can mix them together and have those 3 characters per side, which is, in my opinion, the way to play the game for sure. I like that you can mix the different IPs in the different worlds, so it's fun to have Batman being on the beach or in the condo of the Golden Girls and things like that. So, and it's fun to play with those things, and you bring the cheesecake from the Golden Girls in, and you can use it with Batman and stuff. It's kind of cool. The dice, with the dice and all the moving parts, it's still a very balanced game. The games we played, they went down to the wire. So I'm pretty impressed with this game. On the negative side, it still is a dice chucker at heart, and so it might be a little bit too lucky for some and a little bit swingy, but that's what the game is. But there definitely is strategy there. I tend to prefer more hand management card play, like a game like Wildlands when there's combat involved, than dice rolling, but that's just me. And playing on teams, it says 2 to 4 players for the 4 character set. For me, it isn't as interesting. I really still think this is a 2-player game, because if you got a team and you're trying to strategize with each other, but you kind of want to whisper to each other because you don't want the other team to hear, it's a little weird. I guess some of you can do it and it works fine. I look at this as a 2-player game. Sure, you can play it with more, but you can pretty much play a lot of games with more on teams. That doesn't say to 4 players. But anyway, I'm pretty impressed with this. I think if you like that sort of combat style game and you like any of these IPs, this is definitely one to check out, and that's Funkoverse, the strategy game. Did you miss the Game Topper 2.0 Kickstarter? Have no fear. It's not too late to get in on the ultimate gaming accessory. Convert your table into a high-quality gaming table with a fully portable game topper system and take advantage of some of the best 3mm premium gaming mats in the industry. New styles, new sizes, and new accessories can be yours. Upgrade every game you play by late backing now at GameToppersLLC.com.